My name is Gregory Christopher Sword. I am was the father of Kamilah Sword. During the COVID times, with the lockdown, she became very isolated, very antisocial for a while, didn't know what to do, got lost. She went online and started to meet new friends, new people. She started to experiment with different pills. And it got to the point where I would look at my daughter and she'd come out and she looked like a zombie. So it went from there to her drinking more. Then it turned into something completely different where she would never come out of her bedroom. I wouldn't see her. I would go in and it would be anger yelling at me to get out, get the F out, F off, don't come in here. And at that point she was going through withdrawals and I didn't know what I was looking for. I had no idea what she was going through. Some nights I would get a phone call from her friends that she is blackout drunk. I would go pick her up and she would start yelling and fighting me. I've picked her and her friends up when they're completely unconscious. I'd had to carry them into my car and put them in my car and take them home. And I've had one of her friends pull a gun on me when I've been picking her up to get her away from the situation. Finally, it got to the breaking point. She came up and said, "Dad, I want to change. Me and my friends are going to change for the better." And I saw a completely different attitude to her. She was looking forward to school again. She was making plans for her future, how she wanted to move out with her friends, get jobs, all live and work together. But she was taking hydromorphine at night to help her sleep. No one would tell me that. None of her friends would tell me that. So she'd go in her bedroom, do a pill on her own, wake up the next day thinking it's all safe, fine. Her and her friends would do it together. None of them would think anything of it. Until one night she went out, got some stuff, came home, talked to her grandparents, went downstairs, and was found in the fetal position, dead. That was all Saturday and Sunday night. Wednesday, the BC coroner called me to tell me that she died of a drug overdose and she had 3 things in her system. She had small traces of cocaine, MDMA, and hydromorphine in her system. I had never heard of the term hydromorphine, no idea what it was. And the kids would call Ed Dilly. So my daughter would sit there with her friends and be like, "Yeah, we're gonna go have dilly bars." To me, being a naive father at the time, I thought dilly bar, they're going to Dairy Queen. Joy, hot summer day, you're going to go get ice cream. Go have fun. I'll see you in a few hours. Not realizing that a dilly bar is hydromorphine and Xanax. They would hop on the SkyTrain, go down, and I don't know what station it is, but they would get off and walk up to East Hastings. If they're looking for it, they would go up and ask people if they had either dillies, uppers, or downers. And if they didn't have it, they were able to walk into a pharmacy, pick it up, walk back out, and give it to the kids for $5. Those kids would then come back to Port Coquitlam and sell to their friends. I believe it as one of the major causes to her death, because there's no way any child should be able to get hydromorphine. The ease that they could get blew my mind when I started talking to her friends after she died, how easy it was. It should not be that easy to get to children's hands. Even on her worst days, when she would call me a piece of crap and swear at me constantly and throw stuff at me, I would take that over the emptiness.
I always thought I was a good mother. I always thought I was involved. I volunteered for lots of things. I was on the pack at school. They did dancing, horseback riding. They did sports. They did choir. They did everything. She had some issues in middle school with, pardon me, bullying. And she got to a point where she didn't want to go to school anymore. And I switched schools. And then she did straight A's. But I think that was the very beginning. So that was about 4 years ago. You know, it progresses. I think they start with like vaping and cigarettes, and I think it goes on and on and on, right? So that's easy to do and that's easy to get. And then it gets into something harsher. I fought for a year to get her into an eating disorder clinic, right? Because she has multiple things going on. And she talked to a counselor there, and she told that counselor about the dillies. And that counselor called me and called the school, because she was so worried that she was going to die. I didn't realize that it was taking over her life.
I heard about them because my friends around me were doing them. They kind of just randomly became a common drug for my friends to do. I didn't think that I would get addicted to them. I thought that it was something I could just do and stop whenever I wanted. But after doing them for like a month, it felt like I needed them every day. Like I felt like I couldn't stand being alive without being on dillies. Sometimes I'd throw up when I didn't have them. I would get really irritated, and like things would make me really mad. Things that shouldn't have made me mad would make me mad. We'd kind of just hang out like at parks in groups, and I don't know, it kind of felt like being around zombies almost. There was one girl, and she was fine and like having fun, and then the next second she was just on the ground like seizing, and her mouth was foaming. She was in a lot of pain. She was like screaming, like she couldn't move. She said it felt like someone was like stabbing her. We were all scared and we didn't know what to do. And then we called an ambulance and she went to the hospital.
Somebody tries to say a dilly is not a bad thing. That's wrong. It's wrong. Maybe in the right hands for whatever purpose it was made, but not in the hands of kids and not in the hands of addicts, because it's uncontrollable. I think it just robs them of who they are, if that makes any sense. Their hours are all mixed up. Their days are all mixed up. There's no motivation to go to school. It's just to hang around with the people who can get them the drugs.
There's homeless people down there that sometimes you could just even walk around and they'd ask you if you wanted to buy dillies off of them. There's also other like homeless people where you could give them money and then they'd go into the pharmacy and get like a huge amount of dillies for you. Dillies cost $5 each in Polka. It's such a small amount of money. You could give like $40 and get like 30. It was a lot cheaper if you got them from downtown Eastside. They're drug dealers that would go get them in large amounts and then resell them. Yeah, they just say that it was something good and clean and safe to do.
The safe drug supply is creating addicts, not helping addicts. I love my daughter and I want her to have a normal life. I do not want her on safe drugs. I want her on no drugs.
I'm Madison. I was Kamilah's best friend. I'm 15. Dillies started getting popular about 2 years ago. They were brought from Vancouver and they were safe. Once it hit my group, It was everywhere. Sometimes I would go down with the dealer, multiple people just walking up the street, down the street saying, "Dillies, dillies," and that's how you get them. Some of the homeless people already have them. Some people have just stay stocked on them, or you go with them to the pharmacy and they grab them and they get them for free, and then they come out and sell them to you for like $1.25. At first, you would automatically throw up, but when you get used to it, your body gets used to it. It just makes you feel like a zombie. You're there, but you're not there. I would go buy like a whole bottle, and then it would last me like a week, and then I'd have to go get more. And I couldn't go a day without them. And all my friends started doing them and bringing them around, whether it was at school, my house, the park, they were there. More than half of my school have done them. It's just like fentanyl, but not as bad.
I know of at least a few dozen kids at my school who have done dillies. If a person isn't personally associated with at least one person who is doing hydromorphone, people are at least aware that it's happening.
I know at least a couple dozen teens who use hydromorphone. My daughter has met people in detox who don't live in our community that do dillies. People in rehab that are there because they are addicted to hydromorphone.
I feel like it brings out the worst in people. It like brings out their anger and their sadness, and they become a shell of who they were. It's not the person you know anymore. It destroys people and relationships and families.
I learned what a dilly was when I found bottles of prescription drugs in her bedroom. And she was freaking out. And she said she needed dilly, I need a fucking dilly. I had to try and calm her down. And it was either go to the hospital or she was gonna get in my car and go for a car ride. And I took her to go get candy and Slurpee, and we just drove around. And then we sat in a park until she could calm down. And then she came home and passed out. I started taking pictures and videos of her while she was high, and I would show her when she was somewhat coherent to show her what she looked like and how we all saw her. And I told her that she really needed help.
Everyone in my group would at least do one a day, or you'd start with one and then your tolerance goes up after that, and you just keep doing them until it's not enough at all. The dillies weren't hitting me anymore. I couldn't feel them anymore after doing them for so long. I was downtown with the dealer. They ended up buying down. I had no idea what it was. I tried it, and instantly I just almost melted, just like nothing mattered. I could do whatever I wanted. The first time I ever overdosed was when I took a hit of fentanyl. I was at the SkyTrain station. I took that one hit and I just fell backwards and smashed my head on the concrete. It took 5 Narcan kits to save my life. And I couldn't walk because they Narcaned my legs so many times. First, the cops searched me when I woke up from the overdose and they didn't find anything. And then they searched it one more time before they let me go in my house. And then they found the bottle of dillies on me. Before that, I was happy. I had friends. All I did was smoke weed. Dillies came around and my life just hit rock bottom, and I kept going past rock bottom.
Without hydromorphone, I don't think that any of those people would have gone to use harder drugs. I don't know of a single person who only uses hydromorphone and didn't escalate to harder drugs. It's always the hydromorphone that comes first.
She can't go out in society without being triggered by having to use drugs. I can't leave her alone. She, for now, constantly has to be with someone so that she doesn't go out and use.
I'm watching my little sister slowly die, and every time I watch her leave the door, I think this could be the last time I ever see my sister.
In my school, probably half of the school uses it, or fentanyl. All my friends that I used to hang out with are still doing it. My friends that I hang out with have ended up doing fentanyl now and are fighting for their life. I'm fighting for my life after relapsing. I started when I was 12. Everyone in my group started when they were 12. I've seen 12-year-olds asking for fentanyl. I've seen it all. No matter what age or race or whatever, everyone's buying dillies or fentanyl. If I never tried dillies, I wouldn't have known what anything I know now. Like, dillies was how it all started.
Change is challenging, and this safer supply question is very difficult for some people. And it's currently prescriber based, so there's limited access because it depends on the prescriber. And it will not surprise you to know that many prescribers are very nervous about this. They're concerned about diversion. We hear that a lot. The urban myth now is that people are picking up their safer supply and selling it to youth, and now youth are becoming opioid dependent and youth are dying as a result of diverted supply. And it is not true. Youth are not dying from diverted supply, and it's just another fear tactic, I think, as to ensure that the control is maintained and that we don't allow people to access the drugs that they need.
It's not a myth because my best friend died from it.
I welcome you to spend one day in the community and tell me again that it's a fucking myth.
I think they just don't know what it's like.
They need to be talking to us, not the addicts downtown, not the people that are handing out the safe drug supply. They need to be talking to the families and the kids. I don't think I've ever been contacted by anybody.
These kids are telling you that this is how they got it, and this is happening, and nobody is actually taking them seriously.
The children are telling their parents, they're like, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm getting it. The police are aware, paramedics are aware, but no one chooses to listen.
You're basically calling them liars. Because what teen would make up a story that they got hydromorphone dillies from safer supply? They're 15. They're not that smart.
How many kids have to die before we really wake up and go, we need to make changes? We have to find a better way.
I had a conversation the other day with somebody in a position of influence in government who they're now they are spending time and energy looking at this issue of diversion to youth. It's a very concerning thing. And because physicians are afraid that if they prescribe and it's diverted to an opioid naive user, they may become opioid dependent and they may die. And I understand that, but that may happen to some people, but the fact is, 6 people are dying every single day of every single week of every single month for the last 2 and a bit years. That's the fact.
That is like the most fucked up thing I've ever heard.
It feels sickening to know that people think like that.
It makes me sick to my stomach because no kid should be a casualty.
I don't understand how anyone thinks that children's lives are worth what little success we are having from the Safer Supply program.
Yeah, condoms don't kill people. Fuck. I got nothing. I can't even. So you're basically saying, okay, here you go. Here's some fucking opiates. Good luck. Wow. Wow. I would really love to show, I really wish I could show what it's like to have a child, 15 years old, being addicted to fucking fentanyl. Wow.
I think the people that say that don't know what it's really like, or they've never experienced doing them.
If it was your sibling or your child who died, if that was your child that you found on the ground with a blue face, or if that was your child in the coroner's office, would you really look at them and say, this is acceptable?
I want to see their children take some, and then they can tell me that it's safe. And until they submit their children to the same things my daughter went, I think they're full of it.
Sorry.
My name is Dr. Matthew Ord. I'm a forensic pathologist. The toxicology report indicates that several drugs were found in blood which was obtained from Kamilah's body. The 4 substances that were of particular relevance in that they may potentially pose dangers were fluelprazolam, benzoylecgonine or cocaine, which is the precursor substance of benzoylecgonine, MDMA and hydromorphone. The levels of all of these substances were fairly low. These substances exert their toxic influences in different ways. There were 2 opposing factors that may have been at play. Fluelprazolam and hydromorphone are both depressant substances, that is, they slow down the body's functions, they particularly slow down breathing, and that can pose a hazard to life. Both cocaine and MDMA have an opposite effect, that is, they make the body's processes speed up and accelerate, and in particular, they make the heartbeat more rapidly and more forcibly. The coroner in this instance determined that death would ultimately have been due to a cardiac arrhythmia or an unstable cardiac rhythm, and in effect a cardiac arrest, and that cardiac arrhythmia would have been due to the combined toxic effects of cocaine and MDMA in Kamilah's system. However, I think the evidence that Kamilah in fact actually did suffer an arrhythmia is quite weak. There are no reports of Kamilah having had any significant illnesses during her life, and therefore it would seem likely that her body was healthy, that she would have had a healthy and fully functioning, quite robust heart. So we're not talking here about an individual with a diseased heart who maybe cocaine could have tripped an arrhythmia in quite easily. This is a young, healthy individual. In forensic pathology, we work by a process of deduction to work out the likely cause of death, and typically that would involve an autopsy, which provides a lot of information about disease or injuries that may be present. In this case, a decision was made not to perform an autopsy on the body of Kamilah, and therefore all we have to go on are the toxicology results. The toxicology results only provide part of the picture. We really need autopsy data to provide some context upon which the toxicology results can be interpreted. And in the context of a 14-year-old girl who died suddenly and unexpectedly, I think that's scandalous that her death hasn't been properly investigated. In almost every jurisdiction that I'm aware of in the developed world, an autopsy is performed in each and every instance when a death is suspected to be due to an illicit drug overdose. In BC, a decision has been made not to perform autopsies, but it's worse than that, because not only is the body not being examined by a forensic pathologist at an autopsy, in essence there's no medical input whatsoever. And that's because in BC the coroner has very limited medical training in most instances. The coroner isn't a physician. And the coroner in most drug deaths in BC now is the only person who examines the body. That examination will typically be undertaken at the scene of death, and there are of course limitations that flow from that. One of the key purposes of investigating people's deaths is to identify issues that may impact public health and safety. In polydrug deaths, it's acknowledged and accepted best practice that all drugs that are detected that could potentially have contributed to that death are listed on the death certificate. In this instance, the coroner has listed only the cocaine and the MDMA. I don't think we know for sure how exactly it is that she died, and therefore, to me, I think best practice would be to list all 4 of those substances on her death certificate, namely cocaine, MDMA, fluelprazolam, and hydromorphone.
The coroner's report claimed that it is unknown from where the hydromorphone in Kamila's body originated from. Yet, months before the report was released, Kamila's loved ones went to the national media to share how she had been using diverted safer supply. It is impossible that the BC Coroner Service would have been unaware of this, because not only did Kamila's story cause a national scandal, the Coroner Service was directly contacted to provide comment on the case. Inexplicably, the coroner failed to interview Kamila's friends and family about her death, even though such interviews are normally supposed to occur. The BC Coroner Service declined to answer why this part of the death investigation was skipped. In August of 2024, Greg, Denise, and Amelie launched a class action lawsuit against both the provincial and federal governments. The lawsuit alleges that government officials recklessly promoted safer supply and negligently failed to prevent diversion. It is also alleged that the BC Coroner Service omitted safer supply hydromorphone as a cause of death through undue pressure by the province or for other reasons unknown to the plaintiffs. With the lawsuit working its way through the courts, Greg continues to share his daughter's story where he can. In September 2024, he was asked to testify at a parliamentary committee, but the Liberal and NDP MPs in attendance did not ask him any questions and seemingly used parliamentary maneuvers to reduce his speaking time. Every day, tens of thousands of safer supply opioids are still being given away for free by the government, and government officials continue to mislead the public about this crisis, while youth suffer in silence.
I fought for the last 2 years to save her life, and I failed.